So, Arthur, just another sleepy week. Nothing going on news-wise. Everything is just wavy gravy, right?
Happy Saturday. I'll tell you, we're going to go through the recap for this week, but, the news is not so good. But Dr. Corsi warned us, that this was going to be happening, and we've known about this for some long period of time. So should we just let the cat out of the bag since everybody probably knows it anyway at this point?
Yeah, well, it depends on what cat you're talking about, which bag, because there's a bunch of cats and a bunch of bags, and some of them, those cats have got claws, and some of those bags have got holes. But anyway, this is Arthur and Craig, and that's Arthur over there, and I'm Craig over here. And what we are doing is the weekly recap of Corsi Nation broadcasting. And so it was one whirlwind worth of activity, and things are still not settled. I could care less what the mainstream media and Sleepy Joe think about the results of the election, but we'll walk through that day by day. And before we start with talking about what Dr. Corsi himself, Corsi Nation Broadcasting, was doing on Monday, and then walk through the week, anything you want to say as a prelude?
No, well, it's building up to what we're seeing today. So what I want to say is do not lose faith. All right. Do not lose hope, and listen to what we're telling you, especially if you did not listen to Dr. Corsi's broadcast. We'll point you into the right ones, because Dr. Corsi does a great job in dissecting all the elements that are involved and where we're going to have to go from here and what is actually going to occur. So stay tuned and really pay attention with this. Greg?
Yeah, and so on Monday, Dr. Corsi started out the week's broadcasting by talking about how President Trump was holding 5 or 6 rallies on that day, the last day before the election, that Monday, November 2. And while Harris and Biden were trying to hide, but they had to be dragged out of their basements, or at least Sleepy Joe out of his basement, to do a last-minute tour to try to do something to salvage their Hindenburg crashing on the deck of the Titanic type of a campaign. And so they were Harris was into her full communist mode, and Biden was into his full, I don't even know what you call Sleepy Joe at this point in time. His, can't remember where he is, what he is, who he is, what he's running for, if he's running, if he's alive, he just doesn't know. And maybe that's why I was looking at his watch at sometimes, that maybe that was actually a pulse meter. But anyway, Monday was all about how Trump was on the surge, and the rallies were going great, and the crowds were coming out en masse for him, and Biden was trying to be dragged across the finish line. Arthur?
Yeah, it's really sad that we're seeing, Joe Biden acting the way that he is. It's obvious he has health conditions, and it was also obvious that the surge and the response to Donald Trump's rallies have been incredible. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people coming out and supporting this. This was like 4th of July and all sorts of stuff, rolled into one. It was really amazing to watch all the people coming out. So the dichotomy between the two, one was dead, one was alive. I mean, literally, that's it. So.
And then Dr. Corsi was talking about, now, again, you got to go back in time to Monday, because this week was like 10 years worth of news activity. So you go back and just relive that one Monday past. And what they was talking about at that point was there was a linked confidential memo that had been obtained by Breitbart News, and that there were these left-wing groups that were going to descend upon key areas in the country, Washington, D.C. and other places, and they were just going to wreak havoc. So they were talking about shutting down Washington, D.C. on the day after the vote, because they predicted, or they were believing, that Biden was going to lose on election night, which he did. On election night, Biden lost,
by big
but then
margins.
Other things took place. But so they were presuming, these groups, that Biden would lose, and they needed to tear up the streets in order to try to salvage that lost campaign. And so there were these rallies on the dark side that were going to be all about rip up the streets, burn down the buildings, start, doing all kinds of mayhem. And that's what Dr. Corsi was talking about with this shutdown DC movement, and federal workers going on Zoom and actually having a pre-meeting where they were discussing about, in addition to doing all these evil things we're going to do right after the election, did you know for the last couple of years, I've been sabotaging everything this administration has tried to do while I'm working at the Department of Justice, while I'm working at the Commerce Department? They were all outing themselves with their names and their positions and kind of bragging about how they were the resistance, Arthur.
Yeah. And what's really sad about this is there is no action that's being taken. This is a federal offense. And when you have federal employees that are doing this, you literally have somebody within the core of the government in part of the bureaucracy that is working against that government. That's not just okay, we're going to go ahead and create a little bit of havoc here and play a little mischief. You're creating felonies. And,
Right.
you know, these are crimes, and none of them have been prosecuted. And so what we're going to see, though, is we're going to see where the rubber's going to meet the road. They're not going to get away with it for that much longer. And buckle up your seatbelts here, because it's going to be a rough and rocky November and probably the first couple weeks of December. Craig?
There it is. And so that Dr. Corsi ended Monday by talking about how Kamala Harris, Comrade Kamala, as I'm going to call her for this episode, came out and she released this bizarre video that was all about equity and equality. And basically it was a public service announcement for communism. And however she thought that was going to fly with the American public, it was very curious. And I don't think it really garnered any additional votes for Harris Biden. Do you?
No, I don't. And the problem with the problem with communism socialist arguments is they are very compelling, and they pull people in with this promise of a nirvana that's just not going to happen. It just doesn't happen that way. So by the time people get in it, it's just like a spider web. They're trapped and can't get out. Ask anybody who's lived in a country like Venezuela that's lost their freedoms to communism or socialism, or anybody that had to go through what Cuba went through during the Castro years and, had to get out of there to get the freedoms back. And so, or even ask the first lady, where she was very clear on how it is and why we have the freedoms that we have. People don't realize that what's happening here is that a lot of people are being lulled to sleep by this fake, great visualization of equality for humanity. It's a bunch of garbage. It's basically going to apply communistic standards throughout the whole board. Craig?
Yeah, and so then on Tuesday, Dr. Corsi started out talking at the beginning about how if you take a look at the mass rallies that had taken place on Monday for the Trump campaign, and these throngs of people, and in areas of the country like Tucson, Arizona, where they're trying to pretend that Biden actually won Arizona, which is quite the fantasy, and as we see later in the week, doesn't look like it's going Biden's way. But anyway, on Tuesday, the day of the election, Dr. Corsi was talking about how that day before the Monday, there was like a 96-mile caravan of cars on the main freeway, or I don't even know if they call it a freeway, but where the roadrunner chases the coyote, or it's the other way around in the middle of the desert. Anyway, there were cars, and they were all Trump cars. And then you juxtapose that with the Biden campaign, and they couldn't get. Joe Biden stood on the stage and gave his last talk before the nation, before he wanted to become president of the United States. And when he was done with his little talk, I had no idea what he was talking about. Did you?
No. And it's gotten worse and worse and worse over the weeks. It's crazy. Yeah, it's just not making any sense.
So bottom line is that on Tuesday then, as the voting was taking place, and the fake polls were still all, Biden's going to win by 17 points in this state and 20 points in that state, and Trump's down by this and Trump's down by that. We know that the polls are fake. And the reason they do it that way is voter suppression. And everybody's mentioned that. President Trump has made several statements about it. It's a psychological ploy that the left has used for decades. And that is stay home, people that support the people we don't like, and don't vote because you're wasting your time. We've already won it. We've got it in the bag. Don't you? Look at this. It says that your guy is not going to make it. So why even bother to get out? That's what it's all about. And it didn't work this time. It hasn't worked in the past for the most part. Occasionally, there's been a little downturn in voting, activity because of the appearance that something is going against you, and it's so overwhelming that your efforts are for naught. But that wasn't the case this time. And I think it's going to come back and give a cause of action when the dust settles and where this is headed. We'll talk about what Dr. Corsi laid out for where this is headed later in the week. But I think there'll be a big cause of action against some of these media people and these decision desks at some prominent news outlets who purposely presented false information to the public so that they could drag Sleepy Joe across the line. Arthur?
Yeah, and we were addressing this, and as Dr. Corsi and Craig were discussing this, we're also approaching this from a spiritual standpoint, knowing full well that we needed more help and assistance with the voter fraud. And everybody knew it was coming, especially President Trump. He had been talking about it for a long period of time, and even tried to take care of that right after the 2016 election, and was kind of pushed back on some of those states that had Democratic governors. So everybody knows that this was going to potentially happen. But again, remember, I've talked about the elephant in the room, and that is the mainstream press. And the mainstream press constant narrative all the time is basically propaganda. And the propaganda is constantly saying Biden was going to win, Biden's going to win, Biden's going to win. Don't do anything about it, just like Craig's saying. And we need to fight that. And so it's really up to us and all individuals that can be whistleblowers to stand up. And so we've been making those calls for everybody to do what they need to step up and to protect this vote. And then we find out what happens that night.
And so that, as the media and the Democrats were lying, cheating, and stealing, I call them the party now. There's a Christian sect out there that's the church of the LDS. Well, this is the church, the anti-church of the LCS. This is the anti-church of the lie, cheat, steal. And that's what the Democrats try to do. And their media buddies, their propaganda wing. And so they were all out for Biden on Tuesday trying to make it happen. But as that was happening, it was being reported that there's actually been a formal filing in court that shows that Joe Biden now is listed as a key witness in one of his son's fraud cases.
I thought he didn't talk to his sons about any of this.
How could he be a witness if he didn't talk to Junior?
Yeah, exactly. What happened there? Where were all those discussions? Joe Biden, apparently, he didn't do anything wrong. No, I've never talked to him about his business dealings. Oops.
Oh, and Joe has never, ever, ever taken a single penny from any foreign country ever, never, ever. Except those bushel-fulls of $100 bills that mounted up to $10 million. Well,
you're not supposed to see
that
those.
Wasn't a penny. No. That was $10 million.
No, you're not supposed to see those.
Doesn't count. I'm not a liar. I just said I didn't take a single penny.
That's correct. It just happened to be pallets full of cash.
And then the cherry on the cake for Tuesday was Dr. Corsi reporting about even rabbis have now come out for the first time in rabbinical history. Go back hundreds of years. They have never endorsed a political candidate. And rabbis for Trump came out and gave their endorsement to President Trump.
And almost just as amazing for me, having lived in various different parts of this country, including the great state of Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, and having lived out in Amish territory, was to actually see buggies go by with Trump signs on them. That to me was the ultimate. Boy, God's really touching his people when you see the Amish fighting for somebody to take office. I kid you not. I saw a video that had Amish wagons just like a regular Trump train going by. It was the greatest thing I've seen.
Well, and you got to think of it from this. I respect the Amish for their dedication to their faith. Yep. But a portion of their faith, one of their tenets, their beliefs is with the keeping their way of life the way it was centuries ago. So they don't have machinery. They don't have lights in their house. They do candles and lamps. They do not do anything that's super modern. And when I was back in Wisconsin in 2005 or 6 visiting my aunt, and we went to an Amish community, and at that time I was ignorant of their customs. And I saw an Amish buggy coming down the road, and I went to take a picture. And they had their Amish, the men had their Amish hats, the women had their Amish bonnets, and they all ducked down while I took the picture. And then they looked up, and I knew that something was wrong. And I went over and I walked over and I said, "I'm sorry, did I do something wrong?" And the guy said, "We do not believe in having our pictures captured. You can take a picture of my horse. You can take a picture of my buggy,
carriage, yes,
but I don't want you to take a picture of me." I'm sorry. I didn't understand. So with these Amish out this time in public with the front flags waving, they knew their picture was going to be taken. And so they were kind of getting, doing something beyond their basic beliefs to support something that they thought was a bigger cause, Arthur.
Yes, and what really struck me with this is that this is what America's founded on. You should be allowed to practice whatever faith you can. That's the way the founding fathers had it. And so, as far as I'm concerned, as long as the Amish are doing what they're doing within the confines of the law, more power to them. And they have the most, if you've ever been out in Pennsylvania in those areas, they have the most beautiful farms, and they take exquisite care of their property. And just all the people that I've met have been the nicest people. And the point is that they can practice their religious beliefs any way that they want. This is now not what the Communist Democratic Party wants. They don't want anybody to be able to do this, but this is what America should be about. And what's happening right now is this is a major attack. And as we see the events unfolding today, we'll be talking about this. And when you're ready, we'll talk about the election itself that started on Tuesday night.
So if this was a typical election, there would have been mainly in-person voting, and then there would be some people that would do absentee voting for one reason or another. I do absentee.
Are you paying too much for your health insurance? Are your deductibles too high? Or are you completely uninsured? If you answered yes to any of these questions, Healthcare Help Desk can help you now when people need help the most. Health insurance laws and rules have changed. If you have Obamacare, are uninsured, or your premiums are too high, call Healthcare Help Desk. It's free. New healthcare plans are available, and you may qualify for dental coverage and lower copays and deductibles. Make the free call now. Top quality coverage at the lowest prices anywhere. You may be paying too much and not even know it. In these troubled times, healthcare is more important than ever. Don't let another day go by without health insurance. Policies are being offered with very low copays and deductibles. So if you're uninsured, underinsured, or paying too much, call Healthcare Help Desk. Learn about your options before it's too late.
Call 800-964-1055. 800-964-1055.
Attention Medicare recipients and anyone turning 65. Medicare has approved new benefits not included with original Medicare and older Medicare Advantage plans. You may not be getting all of the benefits you're entitled to. These new Medicare Advantage plans may have many free new benefits including in-home aids, telephone appointments with your doctors, home-delivered meals and prescriptions. These benefits may be available and it's a free call to enroll. The easiest way to enroll is to call the Medicare Benefits Line, a free non-government service. The new plans may also offer free eyeglasses, free hearing aids, free wellness visits, and gym memberships. Call the Medicare Benefits Line now. It's easy. Find out if you're eligible for new benefits like meal and prescription delivery, in-home aids, and telemedicine. Some plans may have a $0 monthly premium or zero copays for big out-of-pocket savings.
Call 800-691-1655. 800-691-1655.
Medicare Benefits Line is not connected with or endorsed by any government agency or the federal Medicare program.
I owed the IRS $10,000.
The IRS garnished my wages.
They put a lien on my house.
I'm self-employed and didn't report all my income. They claim I owe a lot more than I do.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency in the world. They do not give up until you pay.
I couldn't sleep. We were being audited. I called Tax Solutions Now, and a great big weight was lifted off my shoulders.
I called Tax Solutions Now, and they got the IRS off my back.
Tax Solutions Now had my wage garnishment lifted in 48 hours.
Tax Solutions Now can get you help. Our agents know the rules, can stop the pain, and get you the best deal.
Tax Solutions Now saved my business.
I qualified for the Fresh Start program. I paid less than I owed.
We connect you with a team of former IRS agents and tax professionals who get the IRS off your back. Time is running out. Call Tax Solutions Now.
Call 800-447-7570. 800-447-7570.
Voting, and that would have been it. And at midnight, when polls close and all that, at 7 o'clock in this jurisdiction, 7:30, 8 o'clock, whatever, when the polls close, that's it. Vote's over. Anything had to be postmarked by that day in order to be counted as an absentee ballot. It might take a day or two to sift through some of that, but by the end of that night, beginning of the next day, typically you know who's president because it was legal. It was done correctly. It was that on the surface. We're going to find out that there's been shenanigans going on for, back to 1960. But just as far as process goes, it would have been similar to how previous elections. But with the COVID scare and all of this massive mail-in voting and mailing out, hundreds of millions of these ballots to all over the planet, to everybody that wants to get them and all of that, it was obvious this was going to be a different election. But when we went to bed on Tuesday night, the night of the election, it was obvious that President Trump had won. There was no doubt about it. And if it had been by Hoyle, if it had been by the Book of Rules, he probably would have ended up with 360 electoral votes. You only need 270 to be the president. But they were gearing up to do something completely different during the night, Arthur.
Yeah, and what I saw was I stayed up fair late hours watching the election results and being very careful looking at the actual vote counts themselves and what was being reported by CNN and also by RealClearPolitics.com. And so what I did was I was looking at the basis of what they were looking at the popular vote. In the areas of the popular votes, I saw many times that they declared at small levels of response, 37%, 38%, less than 50, certainly less in a lot of cases of 40, where they were declaring states for Biden, and Trump had more votes than Biden did. I saw that in the state of Maine. I saw it in the state of Virginia. I saw it in North Carolina. I saw it in all the states that were supposedly swing states. And I saw it in many states in the West. And even in certain sections of California, you were seeing that there was a red wave of people coming out. But then what we did start to see was all of a sudden it stopped in the swing states in the middle of the night, and they stopped counting. And so basically what was going on was you could tell that Trump was on the verge to win. And in fact, if you hold on a second, I've got my notes.
Yeah, and while you take a look at your notes, so what we're talking about is that before the pause took place, it was obvious that President Trump was reelected. There's no doubt about it.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
Absolutely.
And then so they started calling states on behalf of Biden that should have been left as undecided, and calling states in favor of Biden that clearly were going to go Trump. They're doing it to create the narrative that Biden won. This whole thing is about Biden won, Biden won, Biden won. Don't contest it. Don't resist it. We're going to tell you Biden won, whether the numbers believe it or not, prove it or not. Bottom line is Biden's going to win. And Pelosi said that the other day. She said she didn't care what the numbers came out during the election.
Exactly.
Biden's going to be the president. Well, and you go back a week or two ago, and Joe Biden said, we have launched, or whatever the word was he used, I'm paraphrasing, the most massive and effective voter fraud campaign in history. Voter fraud is what he said.
He said it. And so now remember that Joe Biden has got, he's got, early signs of dementia. Actually, I think it's a little further than early signs of dementia that's coming through. And what's happening is he slipped and it came out. And what we saw then for the rest of the week, and we'll talk about this, was that whole entire structure and how they're operating. And that's what we're dealing with to this day. Dr. Corsi warned us about a lot of what was happening on the night of the election. It had gotten to the point where these following states had not weighed in: Florida, Ohio, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nebraska, and Texas. And so if Donald Trump had carried all of those, he would have had more than enough to be able to do it. All of those states, popular votes were going for Donald Trump. And all of a sudden, then you started to see it flip. You started to see those states that they were calling undeclared, you were starting to see all of a sudden ballots are starting to show up. And so then reports that we started to see the next day, and I'm going to go on to Wednesday. Are we okay with that, Craig?
Let me finish up with two things then that Dr. Corsi finished up on that night. One was that he even on election night, with what he was seeing going on, the morning after, Wednesday morning, the morning after the election, he said this is going to end up in the Supreme Court. Yes. He said he could tell by what had been done, the fraud, how massive it was, and how this is going to play out. He said the bottom line is President Trump is going to be president, and it will because the Supreme Court, as the final arbiter of this, is going to say, in order to preserve the integrity of the American election system, that President Trump was the winner election night, and he will end up being declared the winner when all the dust settles.
Right. Now, what we saw was after that pause occurred, and then all of a sudden these votes started flipping back towards Biden, we started to see some stuff from the mainstream press where they started declaring states Biden the winner, even though the popular vote was still much more in favor for Donald Trump by percentage points, major percentage points, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 percentage points. And they're still starting to call these states over. And so you can see that this was happening when I quit. The next day, Dr. Corsi, in his analysis, and I urge everybody to look at the Wednesday broadcast, Dr. Corsi schooled us. He schooled Craig and I and everybody else in actually how all this could be laid out and how there are more details to the selection of the electoral, the people that are associated, the voters in the Electoral College, how the states are responsible for this component, how there are other opportunities that are presenting themselves in the House of Representatives because of the state delegations, the way that's split up. So I would urge everybody to listen to the Wednesday broadcast, and it will give you a sense of hope so you can understand that exactly what Craig is talking about, all far and above everything that we are hearing in mainstream press And everything that we're hearing through Fox News, anybody, or even noise on social media is exactly that. It's noise, because these votes have not been formally approved and they have not been formally tabulated. So there's a fight that's on. Listen to that broadcast. It was awesome on Wednesday. You agree, Craig?
Oh, absolutely. And two of the key points are, number one is these governors of these Democrat states. So Newsom in California, and then the governors out in these, Michigan and Pennsylvania and so on, thought that they have dictatorial ability to change exactly how the voting rules, the election protocols would work. They do not. They have to be, changes to the electoral laws have to be passed through their legislatures. It's a states' rights issue. The states create their own voting process. That's clear in the Constitution. But the overlords of a particular state don't have the ability to change it at the last minute. Oh, well, we want to be able to count our ballots in the state of Pennsylvania for an extra week, and we want to do this in Arizona. No, that's unconstitutional. Even though they've tried to do it, and the election commissioners are all Democrats in all of these places, especially Philadelphia and Detroit. Give me a break. It's all as bad as Broward County was in 2016 with Brenda Sykes and what she was doing. But anyway, the bottom line is that when it comes to the Supreme Court, even though that with Amy Coney Barrett not on the court, and so you only at this point in time when Pennsylvania had a ruling coming up about how they wanted to change how they were going to vote, and they wanted extra time to count their votes. And it went up to the Supreme Court, and as always, Justice Roberts on the wrong side of the issue made it a 4-4. So if it was a 4-4 decision, and that meant that Pennsylvania, in their eyes, could go forward with this change in the voting procedure, I got news for you. When it comes back to them at the end, and I think that's where it's going to be, then Amy Coney Barrett is on the court, and that same issue is going to be addressed. And I believe that this late counting in Pennsylvania will all be disqualified, and they're going to declare the winner of Pennsylvania as of when the original legal constitutional deadline was, and that will be President Trump.
Yeah, now what's going to happen is the mainstream press is going to jump all over this, and they're going to make it sound like, since they declared the winners, they're the ones that declare the winners, and that's not how it works. And Dr. Corsi made it very clear that, no, that's not how it works. So there's a lot of people, and because of the dumbing down of our schools, really do not understand how election law works in this nation and how the Electoral College actually works in relationship to our Constitution, that they're going to find out pretty quick that what happened that night, and there is plenty of proof now, especially as we're now Saturday, plenty of proof that there was fraud in all those states that we listed and most of the country. And so it looks like even what we're seeing here by other estimates, based on this being Saturday, is that Donald Trump won the popular vote far and away more than everybody else. That's how much ballot changing has been going on. Millions and millions of ballots have been changed, destroyed, left out, modified. There's videos of people writing, making changes, poll watchers that are changing, or vote watchers changing votes. I mean, there's videos, there's people that have been, whistleblowers are standing up, thank God, and saying that their supervisors instructed them to predate ballots back to November 3rd from November 4th, and all sorts of other things that are happening, that there is plenty of proof that's out there. So don't let this, celebration throw you off. This has not been declared, but the press is going to want you to believe and try to force Donald Trump into a position where he's going to have to concede just because of public pressure. What you're going to see is a fight, and you're going to see a major fight on your hands. Go ahead, Craig. Right.
But, again, the popular vote is not the way that this goes. It's the Electoral College. They have to, the states that are sending their delegations, and that nobody's going anywhere. This is all going to be done virtually or whatever. But anyway, each state, has a electoral college that they have then impaneled, if you want, whatever word you want to use it. But that has to be done by December 14. That has to be concluded. And then December 14, the electoral college is the one body that then designates who won the vote and becomes president in their eyes. Now, there's still, again, these legal battles that can happen after that. But at that point, leading the legal battles up to that point. But at that point, then 270 votes by the Electoral College, and whoever gets that, 270 or more, becomes the president. And bottom line is, it's not just, gee whiz, we think Biden won, therefore he won. It just doesn't work that way. And we've got to walk the process through. Right now, what they're doing is Trump's team has people in all of these contested states. So Rick Grinnell was dispatched out to Nevada, and he had thousands of votes to contest because there were thousands of votes that were cast by Biden by people that no longer live in that state. And they're dead people, and that's being contested. And there's in Arizona, they're contesting what's going on there. Pam Bondi is in Philadelphia, I believe, and she's fighting the battle in Pennsylvania. And he's got Sidney Powell, General Flynn's attorney, is out there somewhere pleading to the courts. They're filing multiple suits. They are ensuring that the wrongdoing has been exposed. And this is, like you're saying, Arthur, it's going to be a catfight to the end. But as Dr. Corsi walked through every stage of it, all of it, the way it stacks up, leans in President Trump's favor. And if it has to, as last recourse, go to the Supreme Court, as it did in 2000 with Bush v. Gore and what was going on in Florida. Florida was the key state, and that was going to flip it one way or the other. And the Supreme Court stopped the shenanigans, said that's it, and declared that Bush had been, that was the winner, and that was it. And I think we're headed to something similar, maybe even more contentious. But I think the Supreme Court is going to be the one that says, here's the president.
Yeah, and the fraud, the proof of the fraud is coming out, has to come out in such a way that the mainstream press cannot deny it. And so this whole calling for Biden, as president, that was pulled by Fox. I mean, Fox just obviously, has themselves lined up. We always knew that they were kind of leaning. Dr. Corsi talked about the fact that they were leaning left, and they have basically proved that today. And so at this particular point, we're fighting propaganda in the mainstream press, and we need your prayers so that the letter of the law is enforced. And, AG Barr, if you're listening, where the heck are you? Because I'm telling you, these people should have been prosecuted a long time ago, and we should have never been in this position. So,
supposedly on November 1, Barr had issued an order to his people within the Department of Justice. They were supposed to send out armed agents to ensure the integrity of the election by sending them out to key locations. I guess they all went out for a donut break at the same time. So thank you, DOJ, for doing what did they do to help here? Anyway, so then on Thursday, right, Dr. Corsi was talking about that once again, even now a day later, we're talking Thursday morning now, that President Trump, no doubt, had been reelected on election night. A landslide victory. It was a red wave. They were predicting, Nancy Pelosi and others were predicting that the Democrats were going to pick up another 10 or 12 seats in the House. They did not pick up any. In fact, they've lost several. And when the dust settles, it may end up being 10 or 12 seats flipped from Democrat to Republican. She's going to have she will probably continue. There is a slim chance that the Republicans may even own the House when this is all done. But that's a real long shot. It's probably going to be Nancy Pelosi or whoever they designate to be the Speaker of the House will still be a Democrat and have the gavel. But it's going to be so close. The margin is going to be really close. Unless they flip these votes. And so, basically to stop these votes that were flipping the whole election, thrown out. So, I mean, if that was the case, we wouldn't even be discussing this. And I've actually heard some things, and I'm looking for corroboration about this today, that even some of the Democratic leadership is thinking that these are the last days of Pelosi. Miss Pelosi. I'm going to miss the gavel and her $24,000 freezer with her specialty ice cream. Exactly. And the Senate, they were thinking, the Democrats thought they were going to pick up the Senate. No, they didn't pick up the Senate. There's like 1 or 2 seats that are bouncing around that still haven't been filtered out. But bottom line is Mitch McConnell is going to continue to be the leader of the Senate. And that is key. Once again, just as it was in 2018, retaining the Senate was extremely important for President Trump. And so now going into his next term, President Trump is, at least for the first 2 years,
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Going to have a Republican Senate with him. And that is going to be key because he can continue to nominate those judges and do other things that need to be done. And so where is this blue wave? No, I'm sorry. This was a red wave, and with a bunch of shenanigans following a blue tide. But that blue tide, I think, is going to wash out to sea once all of these misadventures are exposed and hopefully dealt with by the new Attorney General.
Yeah, exactly. And watch what's happening even right now during our broadcast here. You know, Vice President Pence is tweeting up a storm, basically saying, look, this election is not over. And so we need to stay firm, need to stay strong, and go back and listen to that Wednesday broadcast. I'm telling you, you will learn a lot about elections and how all this fits together. And it's certainly, I'll tell you, you know, be perfectly honest with you, Craig, I was a little down after that whole situation on Wednesday. I mean, you and I were talking about it. And then I listened to Dr. Corsi's broadcast and I realized, you know, it really did a shift and an adjustment. So guaranteed those guys that are out celebrating right now in San Francisco because Fox News said that he was a winner, they got a rude awakening coming their way in a couple of weeks. So.
Yeah. And God is on his side. I don't think God is rooting for the Biden-Harris ticket.
We must keep the prayers going and we must keep the vigil. All right. Right. So this is absolutely critical.
And so then Dr. Corsi finished up Thursday talking about his, well, there was let me put it differently. We recorded a session, a broadcast. It wasn't live streamed until the next day for a variety of issues. But let me just put it out what it was. So this was the last thing we did on Thursday was record a broadcast that included Chris Kobach, who had run for state senate in Kansas previously, and Bill Koenig, who has a presence on the internet and does a lot of writing, and he's very well respected, with Dr. Carla Dean Graves, our favorite doctor that comes on, and she's actually the one that pulls together a lot of these guests for us. And they talk through everything that President Trump needs to do and what he can do and what the Constitution says and what it doesn't say. And they kind of walk through that. And what was interesting to me that Kobash, who is an attorney, was more looking at it with kind of blinders on, in my opinion. I'm not trying to beat Chris down, but he was thinking of it from sheer precedent and the momentum of how this is going to go through this and that, where Dr. Corsi then used that as an opportunity to say, no, but wait, this is how it works, and this is what they did, and this is what's being uncovered, and these are the courses of redress. These are the possible things that at this court level, what they can do, at the Supreme Court level, what they can do. So if you listen to that interview that was recorded on Thursday and was posted on Saturday, on Friday, then that gives you kind of the little kind of the, I would say traditional, take on a lot of this. And with then Dr. Corsi, though, putting it in perspective with his unique skill set and understanding of how these things should work. Arthur?
Yeah, and it's amazing how we'll see this unfold. And what I would recommend, so that you don't get disheartened, is to take your attention off of the mainstream press, because the attempt here is to try to dishearten, and the attempt is to try to take you down. This might be a good time to put your focus and attention on other things, and during your spiritual and prayer work, put your attention on giving the support to the legal teams that have to do their jobs, and to make sure that the all-seeing eye of God reveals this. So we actually have a prayer out on the Prayerful Patriot that was developed as a result of the results of the election, and it's really good, and you'll see it up there. It's on the agreement petition that we take a look at. It's the featured one right on the front page, and it's got a picture. It's a meme, actually, of a woman holding some boxes, and the boxes literally say "Emergency Democrat votes." So hang on, we've got more votes. So when you see that meme, go ahead and click on that, give that prayer, and you'll see a lot of detail that's based on Dr. Corsi's conversations and Craig's conversations about what needs to happen. So please spread this around. We must get this out, and we as Christians must band together. And our Jewish friends, let's get the prayers going here, and everybody else in whatever religious, spiritual aspects you do, please practice your religion and ask for God's will to manifest in these situations. Greg?
Yep. So Friday morning, the darkness was revealed. The light started to shine in the darkness, and Dr. Corsi started to reveal that with, this is exactly what their plan was, and this is how they executed it. They knew on election night, I think they had plan A, plan B, plan C. Plan A was, we believe our own polls, and Biden is going to be the overwhelming victor. And if that happens, we don't need to do anything. We won fair and square. Well, kind of, but there's still other stuff leading up to that. That was not by oil, but they wouldn't have had to do what they did, plan B, plan C, and all so on. And that's what had to kick in, though, because they knew that Trump had won. So what they did then, and like you were saying, Arthur, is that they then and isn't it interesting that multiple states did this, and multiple jurisdictions within states did the exact same thing at almost the exact same time. And if you don't, construe that as being some kind of plan that was launched rather than just a coincidence, gee whiz, isn't that amazing how at exactly 3:00 in the morning they did this, or exactly at midnight they paused.
Yeah.
And then they waited a certain amount of time. And then at 4 a.m., all these guys coming in with their big cases on rolling wheels. These vans are pulling up at all of these vote counting stations. And the vans are backing up and they're unloading boxes, and and they won't let any Republicans in the area. You can't be back there if you're a Republican poll watcher and all of that. This is top secret. This is how we steal the election. You can't watch us steal the election. We told you we were going to steal the election, and now we're stealing it, but we don't really want you to watch until we've stolen it.
And you can't, and even ones that were court ordered, we're not allowed to see this. They were putting up paper on windows and blocking this from happening so that only the people that were in the room could count these votes. It's not so much the counting process as where did these votes come from? And that's the problem. So what Dr. Corsi made it really clear is that, as I thought about this, it's almost like if you look at it like a criminal case, where it's very important that, let's say, for example, a prosecutor is trying to nail a criminal with bad, with bad things that have happened, and they're trying to pin a murder on a criminal that actually did it. What they need to do is to make sure that the evidence that proves that he was actually a murderer, whatever was happening or this crime was committed, must very carefully be carried from when it occurred and where it occurred to the courtroom, and that's called a chain of custody or custody chain, and it must not be broken. If any of those are broken in a criminal case, that evidence usually gets thrown out. And what that basically means is you can no longer count on that evidence because it may have been tainted. So what are we seeing with this election? The same exact thing. What should happen is at the point where if I'm given a ballot, I should prove that it's me, that it's Arthur, who's actually filling out this ballot, and that I live in this location, and that this is, my ID. I've registered to do this. Fine. This piece of paper is an actual document that proves that I actually voted for this person. It then needs to be given in such a way to the place where it's counted so that it will never, ever be construed as somebody getting in between, and that ballot would somehow or another be changed or modified or deleted, thrown out, or added to and nullified by adding 5 more votes that were fictitious. That's exactly what's happening. So what's happened is the chain of custody has been broken between whoever fills out those ballots and the counting. And that's the problem. It's not the counting that's the problem. It's how the votes are getting to the counting that's the issue.
I think there was a guy with a beard hung around in Russia back in the 40s and 50s who said something about it. It doesn't really matter who votes. It matters who counts the votes. That was Joseph Stalin, by the way. That was, and I paraphrased because it was longer than that. But bottom line was, you can put in 1 million votes if you want, and I'm going to turn around and say I won anyway.
All right. So here we go, right? All of a sudden, I'm Joe Poll, right? I'm Joe Poll counter. Somebody shows up and they say, okay, Arthur, here's a piece of paper. Oh, wait a minute. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ballots that have come from citizens. And oh, lo and behold, they're all Biden. How can you prove that? There's no chain of custody. There's no way I can tell that person is there. Oh, wait a minute. So they're finding out that the people that actually filled these out, dead. Or
and they were all born on January 1st, 1900.
Yeah, there was somebody there. It was 1850 or something. There was one that they found that somebody was born in the 1800s.
Somebody from that was alive during the Civil War is still voting.
Or the same person voting across multiple states. So there are some things that they can do. Yeah. Listen again to Dr. Corsi. He'll explain how they can do it. They can cross-reference to other databases, find out and come up with a burden of proof so that when they go up to the Supreme Court, they're saying, look, Pennsylvania, we've got 10% of the ballots don't match up. Something's wrong. Voter rolls are incorrect. How can we, base this on it? And then that's where they have to prove that the chain of custody has been broken between actual registered voters and the county. Correct?
Yeah, and so there's multiple challenges that can go on for double voting, for people voting that aren't in the rolls, for felons voting, for people that are dead voting. You name it. There's so many different challenges going on right now. And that's the difference between what's going on now and when Nixon conceded to JFK in 1960, when Sam Giancana, the mob boss in Chicago, put in 250,000 votes for JFK for him to win the presidency, because JFK's father, Joseph Kennedy, was back in the Prohibition era. The way that they made the Kennedy fortune was made off of bootlegging. It was made off of during Prohibition, rum running, whatever you want to call it. And so, gee whiz, he must have had a relationship, Joseph Kennedy, with Sam Giancana, or Sam Giancana's dad. And so Giancana thought he was going to do him a favor and get his son into the presidency, and that worked. And Nixon was told about it very soon after the election and thought about it quickly, and then said, I'm not going to contest it because the sanctity of our election cannot be doubted by our citizenry. If we do this, it'll only damage the system. Now, 60 years forward, they could care less about whether they damage the system as long as they control power and win. That's all they care about. So and the integrity of the system, they could care less.
Yeah, whatever shows up in the media, So this is what we're up against, everybody. We're up against people that don't care, and that a majority, yes, many of these ballots are invalid. And it was proven on Tuesday night. And then we start to see it slip away. So they're You have how it's happened. Craig will tell you the story about California in 2018, and we've talked about that
in
over
2018. There were six.
We're seeing it at the state level now. We're seeing that in massive voter fraud. Correct.
Yeah. And so in Orange County, California, there were 6 seats that were up, and there were 6 seats in Orange County in 2018. All, the House of Representatives, all of the members of the House of Representatives, all 435, their seats are up for re-election every single election cycle every 2 years. So all 6 of those seats were in jeopardy. All on election night in 2018, all 6 Republicans were ahead in the vote. And within a week or so after the extra special voting took place, gee whiz, all 6 Democrats were declared the winners. Isn't that something?
Wow. Where did those votes come from?
So I believe that Orange County, California in 2018 was the tweaking of their protocol, the refinement of their procedure, the last little, now how do we really do this? And maybe that's where they came up with the pause. Who knows? In 2018, they said, this is the way to do it. Just have everybody go out to coffee. We count how many votes the opposition has right then. And we need 1,100 in order to supersede them and be victorious. So let's make 1,110 votes. And that's how they do it. And they win. And so all 6 Democrats were then seated in the House of Representatives.
So
now we got it again.
Yeah. And so what you're seeing then is this is tied. These are coup elements that Dr. Corsi keeps pulling us back together so that we have an understanding of this, is that the coup also involves the COVID because of the lockdown to force the issue of the mail-in ballots. So by making sure that people are locked down, that they can't get out to the polling places, and that's why you kept hearing this drumbeat. You can't go out and vote. You got to be locked down. If it was me, I'd keep the masks on, blah, blah, blah. And the whole 9 yards, well, that's so that they can come up with all of a sudden boxes and boxes of ballots because they were mailed in. And so what we're seeing is all that stuff is now being questioned. And you can tell, Craig, I guess, and I'm going to make a comment on this, to finish up on the election part of it. But I think that what has to happen is you really, as far as God goes, I've seen this happen over and over again, that it has to be proved that there's been a problem. They have to play their hand. And I've seen situations where darkness must play their hand so that, the judgment can come back. Otherwise it becomes something that really people can't put their fingers on it, but you really can't prosecute anything unless it's occurred. And so everybody knew this was coming. And but the point was, now we need the prayers to support those people that must do their jobs to make sure that this gets carried through. So now our election, we've all stood up. We've made our prayer, we've made our stand for this. Now those that have to take the ball and run with it, they need our prayers. Correct?
Yeah. And so it's obvious then election night, President Trump prevailed. He is he continues on as the 45th president of the United States and has another term. There's no doubt that that's exactly what happened Tuesday night. We also know that now between then and now, the left has completely exposed themselves. It's so obvious. There are whistleblowers coming out at a bunch of different jurisdictions. The Postal Service employees coming out. There are actual Democrat poll watchers who are coming out and saying, I saw what was happening. I can't take it. I know that I'm, kind of going against my own party here, but this is too important to our country. And so we've even got Democrat poll watchers blow.
Mom, thank God you're going to be okay.
So relieved. But you both should know when my time comes, I have a final expense policy with Senior Care USA.
Is Senior Care USA the life insurance policy that helps loved ones pay for funeral expenses and other debts? Bill and I called to get more information.
Yes, and there's an immediate payout of up to $50,000.
If you're over 50, call Senior Care USA now to learn more about final expense insurance plans.
There's no medical exam, even if you have a pre-existing condition like I do. When I called, the quote was free, and there was no pressure.
I found out that policies start for as little as 35 cents a day. Rates will never increase and coverage won't decrease.
I'm going to call today.
Ask about the free prescription discount card. Oh, I'm so glad you'll be taken care of.
Call 1-800-822-7419. That's 1-800-822-7419.
But is it It's really just the beginning, right? Have you written a book and want it published but don't know where to start? You're not alone. Page Publishing cuts through the confusion that most new authors face, like copyright protection, barcodes, printing, and digital uploading. We will get your book into bookstores now. We guide you through the publishing maze and help you distribute and sell your work in hard copy and ebook formats. That's right. We will digitize and place your book for sale on Amazon, Apple iBooks, and Google, offering it to millions. Don't waste another minute. Most publishers won't even look at new author submissions, but we're different. We review your book and provide you feedback in about a week. If we decide to publish your book, your work ends and ours begins. From copy editing and proofing to typesetting and book cover art, our team gets you into bookstores fast.
Call 1-877-461-5033.
Does your current bathroom need to be updated immediately? Introducing One Day Bath and Shower Remodeling, the complete and hassle-free way to get the new bathroom of your dreams in as little as 1 day, and for as little as $199 a month. Yes, the experts at One Day Bath and Shower Remodeling will come to you anywhere in the country and show you all the customized options. Now you can have a brand new bathroom in as little as 1 day. Large or small bathrooms, if you want a new bathtub or shower installed, we can do it in as little as 1 day. And if you call right now, you can save $750 off your remodel. We make it easy by offering you financing as low as $199 per month. So for as little as $199 a month, you can finally have the bathroom of your dreams. Call now to schedule your free in-home consultation.
On the whistle on what they were seeing that was happening. You've got the 4x8 panels of wood being put on the windows in one of the precincts in Detroit, preventing people from seeing. You've got that. You talked about the fact that a judge had ordered in Philadelphia that the Republicans had to go to a judge quickly and get a judge to say, our poll watcher is not being allowed in at this polling place, and by law, he has to be allowed in. And judge says, go back and get that poll watcher in there. What do? Poll watcher goes and shows up. The sheriff of Philadelphia refuses to follow the judge order and keeps the Republican poll watcher out. These things will not stand. I don't care how high it has to go. When it gets to the Supreme Court to maintain the integrity of the election, the Supreme Court is going to probably rule 5-4 on whatever the final vote is on the final piece of activity that they're voting on, and it will be in favor of President Trump. Hopefully it doesn't have to go that far. There was a report, and now today is Saturday, and so we're reporting through Friday, but I just want to tell you what additional information has come out. The other day, Charlie Kirk was on a radio talk show, and it was early in the morning, and he looked beat. They've been up, for days dealing with this stuff. Charlie Kirk is a conservative. He's one of those youth leaders on campus because he talks to people on the campuses. He's now, grown and gone out of that, but that's what he does. I can't remember the name of his movement. Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk. Can't remember what it's called. But anyway, he was out there in Arizona, and they were identifying all kinds of fraud, and the issues were being dealt with. And his belief, and this was now sometime Friday, was that Arizona was going to go for Trump by at least 20,000 votes. Saturday now, Steve Bannon on War Room has announced that Trump's going to win Arizona.
All right.
And so now follow that through to the rest of these states that still haven't been, where the dust hasn't settled. He's going to win.
Yeah, but now there's a preemptive strike by the forces of darkness and the left working through the AP. AP came back and called the election for Joe Biden.
Sure.
And so this happened today. Yep. Then after that, mainstream press follows their lead because that's their barking orders coming from AP. AP, Associated Press, puts that out there. Next over is Fox News. Now you have what appears to be a conservative-oriented mainstream media outlet, which we know full well, and Dr. Corsi has made it very clear over many, many broadcasts that Fox News is not to be trusted. Sure enough, goes ahead and calls the election for Joe Biden. And so now what that shows to everybody else who's followed anything with a mainstream press, remember, we're talking about constantly being barraged by the same message over and over. It's the elephant in the room. the propaganda, are forcing, and everybody's looking at this. Well, Fox News, oh, Mr. Conservative has now called the election in favor of Biden. And so the rest of them will do likewise. And now you have the mainstream press that are trying to preempt all this evidence that is being exposed on Friday with this announcement today. So it's another ploy to try to turn public opinion against Donald Trump and to force him into capitulating and giving up the election. Prayers, everybody. We need prayers. Make sure that Donald Trump and his legal teams are protected. You cannot let this go. Our nation is counting on this man being our president for the next 4 years. Trust us. And we need to make sure that we protect that Constitution and we protect our freedoms and our way of life. Craig?
Right. And now one of the outlets had put out a rumor stating as if people close to President Trump are saying that he's on the edge. He's going to capitulate. He's going to give up. He's going to say he lost, which was a complete and total lie. The White House press department has come out with a formal, strongly worded statement. No how, no way. We won. Donald Trump saying I won, and I'm not going to relent to this illegal criminal activity. And when the dust settles if it goes to the Supreme Court, they're going to say I won. So it doesn't sound like he's given up to me.
No, and I also would say I would pray now for those people that have really, really stood on the edge with their jobs to try to report the truth. And I'm talking about Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, Tucker Carlson, and those people that are still in the mainstream press, specifically in Fox News, to hold their positions so that they are not forced into capitulating to that message. And on top of that, conservatives are again being banned by the lid is on absolute shutdown, lockdown to try to get any message that's contrary to what the mainstream press is trying to put out now to keep everybody from hearing it, including this message.
Yep, and it's only going to get worse during the weeks to come because until December 14, this is still going to be a battleground both in courtrooms and on the street. And so we're just going to have to, and I think this is a good time, Arthur, for you to go ahead and throw out a prayer because, boy, if we need it, it's now.
All right, let's do that. Now, again, I'm going to point you to this prayer that's up in the Prayerful Patriot. And we gave this, Craig and I have given this together. I'd like to give it on the air, if that's okay, Craig. And then we can do it because it's important. And I'm asking everybody to please spread this prayer around. So this prayer, this petition is specifically to correct the fraud, the election results, and to make sure that the fraud is stopped. So with that said, please lock into this. We're going to use the dispensation of Jesus, Matthew 18:18, John 14:14, where our agreement in his name, he can intervene before the courts of the Father to ask for this intervention. So your prayers, we want to be multiplied and make sure everything is in alignment to the will of God. So we do it by his rules and not some made up rules. All right. So with that said, in the name of God, I am that I am. In the name of that Christ presence of myself and Craig and anyone else making this prayer with us. Beloved Jesus, we agree together in your name that the will of God be made manifest for the all-seeing eye of God to expose all the voter fraud, the vote manipulations, the structures that are in place, the methods, the people involved, and the funding sources behind the fraudulent manipulation that has taken place in the 2020 presidential election. The immediate and swift ending of all attempts to steal the U.S. presidential election of 2020 and all other federal, state, and local elections by any means, but especially the use of the ballot harvesting, mail-in ballots, improper vote counts, and compromises to accurate election results which have altered the true electoral and common vote results of the 2020 presidential, congressional, and local elections. The usurpation, bending, and altering of election laws, the inclusion into bills and legislation or through congressional, executive, or legal actions or other types of orders at local, state, city, or federal government levels that is allowed the practice of or is supporting the practice of ballot harvesting, inappropriate mail-in balloting, and vote tampering. Actions that would establish timelines to drag out the counting of votes in order to flip the results. Compromised ballot counting, loss or destruction of real votes, inaccurate vote counts, watered down votes from illegal and unsanctioned ballots, compromised machines and software that alter vote counts and report inaccurately the results of any election. All attempts to allow those who should not have a vote to vote, such as illegal aliens, underage, deceased, or fictitious individuals. The dragging out of responses to legal actions initiated to correct elections by those complicit in the fraud in an attempt to run out the clock on the Electoral College meeting where the president is selected. The removal from office, prosecution, and nullifying the election results of those not serving the light of the Christ, who have illegally taken office as a result of the elections being stolen, who are not allowed by law to hold office, or do not pass the requirements for office because of any reason, such as medical, health reasons, constitutional requirements, or citizenship status. The replacement of those individuals with those candidates that have been properly prepared by God to take their places in government. The immediate clearing up of the U.S. Postal Service and the exposure of all illegal actions of postal employees and bringing to justice those who should be prosecuted. The prosecution of those who have committed federal crimes and the reestablishment of the honor and integrity of the election process in America. To begin immediate and accurate recount of votes and legal actions to be implemented where necessary to correct invalid vote tallies, to remove fraudulent ballots, especially in states where voter fraud has taken place, specifically but not limited to the states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, Nevada, North Carolina, Virginia, Arizona, Nebraska, Maine, Minnesota, and New Mexico, and in all districts and counties where voter fraud has taken place. To wake up and cut free the public, the press, the state legislators, and the Supreme Court and lower courts to the plots, false information, propaganda, and misguided narratives, cover-ups of criminal activities that are being pushed upon the population. The overshadowing of all those who must be involved in resolving the election results in their respective areas, such as judges, lawyers, state legislators, prosecutors, and the president, and to impress God's will upon them to make it clear and obvious what is the direction that they should follow. Divine justice to be served upon the media, pollsters, and those complicit in keeping an inaccurate narrative alive about the elections and are responsible for spreading of discord and unrest among the citizens. And I would add to that also this announcement that Donald Trump has not won the election and that Joe Biden has. The education of every citizen as to the constitutional issues at stake in the election, such as the state's responsibility and rights in the selection of electors for the Electoral College, the nullification of every fraudulent vote and ballot that has occurred in this election, and the swift bringing of the perpetrators to justice, the releasing of divine justice and divine intervention needed immediately to stop the fraud and ensure that the correct results stand, the establishment of the appropriate controls going forward of a national voter ID and proper vetting of citizens who can legally vote to protect their rights, the clearing of our government of the corruption and corrupt individuals and their attempts to alter God's will, which is manifesting through the will of the people, the clearing of all Illuminati, Luciferian, and satanic manipulation of the people and the elections, all treachery and intrigue, lawlessness, and opposition to the Constitution as a divinely inspired document. We also ask for help and assistance and protection of all those whistleblowers, people who must take a stand, and to show everybody what they need to do to ensure that our union is protected, that the will of God is made manifest, and God can govern through the people that are here for a complete God victory for America and everybody else. Craig?
And Father, we continue to lift up the persecuted through this process, Lieutenant General Flynn, that he will finally be released from his bondage, that Judge Sullivan has inappropriately and illegally prevented him from, the General Flynn, from being completely exonerated from all of the false charges that were brought against him. Give him strength, peace, and comfort in the upcoming days as we count down to him being released from his bondage. We also then pray for the persecuted physicians that have had as their first calling the saving of lives and not personal profit or power, and as a result have been persecuted by their medical boards in different states, by the press and by the social media platforms to try to silence them. Dr. Stella Emanuel, who made that impassioned plea in order for the President of the United States to give out a decree that hydroxychloroquine and zinc should be released to all people in the United States, and that all of this false narrative, the false information coming from the supposed experts in the field, the doctors Fauci and Birx and Hahn, that to pretend to be physicians that are interested in the well-being of your children, but are actually, Lord, working deadly against that and have causing people to die as a result. All of these evildoers, like the Cuomo in New York and the mayor of New York, de Blasio, mayor of New York City, who have intentionally made decisions in order to damage the president while putting people who are sick in areas like nursing homes, which cause other people in the nursing home to die in despair and alone. And then this must be reversed. And Lord, we're asking you for you to intervene now and do it forcefully. We know that your plan supersedes all our plans and all of the plans of the devil and his minions. And we know that a lot of times you have to put us through periods of discomfort in order for all of the darkness to be exposed before you can do a cleansing action. We would pray that time has arrived, that all of the darkness regarding this illness, all of the darkness surrounding the election should all be brought up to the front now and eliminated and destroyed. And so we pray for justice. We pray for justice to be done quickly, and we pray for the people that have been mistreated to have some recourse and other action to be taken to make themselves whole for what they have lost. And we just lift all of these things up to you in Jesus' name.
We also agree together for the protection of the patriots that have been kind of lulled to sleep as a result of psychological operations by the intelligence communities, and especially anybody in the Q movement or anybody that feels themselves a patriot, where they're being lulled to sleep by misinformation that everything is under control and that the government has all these watermarks or whatever that are on the ballots, when we know that the ballots are generated at state levels. We also agree together or any other misinformation to be clarified, corrected, and to get these people on board, those that are your servants, that know how to research, that know how to expose, that know how to dive into these matters, and to get them so that they continue to do this work, to reveal the evidence that's necessary to bring this across the finish line. We ask this according to God's holy will, and we ask that no light to be given unlawfully, unauthorized to any part of life where there's not the commitment unto the soul's salvation, unto the worship of our God. We also agree together for the absolute God protection from the backlash from the forces of darkness by this prayer and the subsequent release of light into these situations. We ask for everyone to align themselves with the true teachings of our Lord Jesus Christ. We ask for the cloak of invincibility and vulnerability and visibility and protection to be upon us, our loved ones, and those to whom we are spiritually tied in as far as the forces of darkness are concerned. Let this prayer be adjusted according to God's holy will. Nevertheless, not our wills, but thine be done. Amen.
Amen and amen. Thank you, sir. And so that's it for this week. Buckle up. It's going to be even more interesting in the couple weeks to come. Keep an eye on Dr. Corsi, his broadcasting Monday through Friday on all of the different platforms, YouTube, Vimeo, BitChute. We put our broadcasts out there. So 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday for Dr. Corsi doing his news before it happens. And we'll do another one of these recaps next weekend. Arthur?
Yeah, let's do it. Make sure you get out there, spread that prayer around, and make sure that you get this out, everybody. Please, we need your spiritual work on this. Protect the president, protect his teams. It's important to save our nation. And also, please keep continuing to pray that cooler heads prevail, because there's going to be a lot of very upset people up there right now, and we don't want shooting to start. So let's try to keep this under control. By God's grace, we'll win. Thank you.
And Dr. Corsi always says,
in the end, God always wins. And I always say, maintain that spirit of victory. So always victory. And Craig, you always say,
we will never be silenced. We will never surrender. We will fight on to the final victory in God's name. God bless you all, Corsi Nation.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Attention homeowners, do you have a house that's in need of serious repairs? Do you have tenants that never seem to make their monthly payments? How about code violations, past due taxes, or maintenance costs you just can't afford? Then call my friends right now at Quick Cash Offer. They specialize in buying any home, no matter how ugly the situation. Turn that problem property into cash right now. It's just that simple. One call and you can get rid of that home headache forever. They buy the ugliest houses with instant closings, instant cash, and huge savings. Plus, there are no realtor fees, no listing fees, and no repair costs. Just cash in your hands for that painful property. They're buying a few more houses in your neighborhood this month. So take advantage of this cash offer and call Quick Cash Offer now.
855-296-8854. 855-296-8854. That's 855-296-8854.
Listen carefully. If your student loan debt is overwhelming you and things seem hopeless, we've got great news.
If you're still struggling with your student loan debt, there are government programs available that may actually lower your payments by consolidating your federal student loans. Just call us. We'll review your situation and work with you to consolidate your debt. In many cases, depending on your situation, we can lower your monthly payments in half or more. It doesn't matter how much you owe or how far behind you are. Even if you're in default, call us right now to find out how we can lower your payment in half immediately. You can stop the harassing phone calls and the wage garnishments. All you need to do is pick up the phone and call us right now. We can remove your default status, consolidate your federal student loans, lower your payments, and we can do it today. Stop worrying. This is a real solution that can help. So please call us right now.
Call 800-917-8671.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you and all seniors from the Final Expense Insurance Hotline. The average funeral costs about $7,000, even more. And the most government benefits will pay your family is only $255. That leaves your loved ones with a burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay up to $30,000 for your funeral and other final expenses. There's no medical exam and you'll have lifetime coverage. Plus, your rates will never increase and your plan cannot be canceled regardless of your medical condition, as long as you make your premium payments. Get free information right now. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 855-221-7334.
Do you have an idea for an invention, but you don't know what to do next?
How do you get in front of companies or get a patent?
Call InventHelp. They've been helping inventors just like you for 35 years.
And thousands of people contact them every month.
With 65 offices, you can meet with an InventHelp representative near you who will keep your idea confidential and explain their invention process step by step. InventHelp has helped over 10,000 inventors get patents. And they offer 3D animations and prototyping services to help demonstrate your idea. InventHelp's exclusive databank includes over 9,000 companies who have agreed to confidentially review new ideas, like yours.
Don't wonder what to do next. Take action right now and get the help you need from InventHelp.
InventHelp. Call today for free information.
800-880-2937. That's 800-880-2937 now.
Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani with Rudy's Common Sense. Today, we're going to concentrate on Michigan. We're going to concentrate on the two lawsuits that have been filed. They are both very, very big cases. One in state court, one in federal court. And we're going to drill down, not the whole lawsuit, but we're going to drill down into the key witnesses, because the fake media is reporting over and over again, including Fox, that there is no evidence, hard evidence of fraud. There are thousands of pieces of evidence of hard fraud. They just don't publish it. They have an iron curtain. If you show them an affidavit signed by someone that says they observed fraud, they don't put it on. I mean, it's really incredible, but it isn't incredible. It's un-American. And the only way we get around it is by going around them, getting on OAN or Newsmax or local radio or some radio stations that are brave enough to publish this. And I know why they're doing it. I mean, they're doing it, some of it because of ideology and some of it because they're being threatened by sponsors. We've had people threatened with being thrown out of their law firms if they help us. I mean, that's for another day, but this is McCarthyism on steroids. This is making Nixon's enemies list look bad, but not as bad. This is probably the worst time in America for the exercise of your rights of free speech. The worst. This is not terribly different than what's going on in Venezuela, and very interestingly, you're going to see that Venezuela is involved in this voter fraud. But now we're going to go to Michigan. What happened in the state of Michigan? We filed a lawsuit several days ago, two of them, one in state court, one in federal court, one in Detroit and one in Lansing. And together they allege the following, that like Pennsylvania, Detroit was a cesspool of systemic corruption, that the Detroit Democratic machine, which has its own issues of corruption, maybe as bad, maybe not as bad as Philadelphia, its own history of voter fraud, maybe not as legendary as Philadelphia, but still there, that they did essentially the same thing that Philadelphia. They excluded Republicans from being able to observe the mail-in ballots, the ballots that were so disputed, the ballots that were new to this election. We never had that before. We had absentee ballots, but not you could just mail in. And we never had so many mail-in ballots to deal with. Michigan set up a lawful procedure for doing that. Critical to the lawful procedure, of course, was the inspection by both parties. Because what I think you have to understand about a mail-in ballot, unlike a ballot in a machine or even a ballot on paper that's submitted and then it is checked on the voter roll, once that envelope that sends in the ballot is discarded, you can no longer verify it. The verification takes place on the spot. And from time immemorial, when absentee ballots are counted, the city or state worker sits in the middle, has the ballot. On one side is a Republican, on the other side a Democrat, liberal, conservative, whatever. They pull out the envelope. They all look at the envelope. They see whether all the identifying data is there. They see if it looks good or suspicious. If it looks good, they take it. They open the envelope. Inside is another envelope sealed to preserve the privacy of your vote, and it's put in the vote pile to be counted. And the envelope is put over there. And basically now you can no longer verify. They've become separated from each other and mixed up within 1 million votes. In this case, there was no Republican. Rarely was there even a Democrat. A couple of times you'll see there were 2 Democrats and no Republican. No Republican got to see that. We've shown in Pennsylvania that we can count now up to 628,000 votes were unlawfully cast that way. And now in Michigan, we're well over 300,000, and we've just begun to count. But I want to drill down now into there's no evidence, they say, of voter fraud. And I want to show you an affidavit in the state case that's been filed that has been incorporated by reference into the federal case. So it's part of both cases. This is I believe it's Exhibit B, and it's from a city worker. So this person is well, let me just read it. My name is Jesse Jacob. I'm an adult citizen and resident of the state of Michigan. I've been employed for the city of Detroit for decades. I want you to note at the end that it's sworn to. This is not just a letter. This is an affidavit, and if this person is lying, they go to jail for at least 5 years. Okay? Federal and state, because we submitted it in a federal lawsuit now. And she has no fear of that happening to her. Regular citizen, longtime employee of the city of Detroit. City of Detroit. I don't know if she's a Republican or a Democrat. I guess I'm going to assume she's a Democrat. Probably shouldn't, because it's Detroit. And 8 out of 10 are Democrats. She was assigned to work in the elections department for the 2020 election, and she received training from the city of Detroit and the state of Michigan regarding the election process. She worked at the headquarters for most of September, and then she started working at a satellite location for most of October. She processed absentee ballot packages to be sent to voters while I worked at the election headquarters in September 2020, along with 70 or 80 other workers. I was instructed by my supervisor, quote, to adjust the mailing date of these absentee ballot packages to be dated earlier than they were actually sent. First crime. Ordered to do it by her supervisor, a city worker. First fraud. First crime. The supervisor was making announcements for all workers to engage in this practice. So it wasn't individual, it was pervasive. At the satellite location, I processed voter registrations and issued absentee ballots for people to vote in person at the location. I directly observed on a daily basis City of Detroit election workers and employees coaching and trying to coach voters to vote for Joe Biden and the Democrat Party. Completely illegal. That's me. Editorial aside. She goes to say, I witnessed these workers and employees encouraging voters to do a straight Democrat ticket. I witnessed these election workers and employees going over to the voting booths with voters in order to watch them vote and coach them for whom to vote. During the last 2 weeks, while working at this satellite location, I was specifically instructed by my supervisor not to ask for a driver's license or a photo ID when a person was trying to vote. Gosh, let's not see if they're an illegal alien. Let's not see if they come from New York. Let's not see if they were sent over from Chicago, where they surely were going to win. So why waste time in Chicago? Come and vote in Detroit like they do from Camden to Philadelphia in almost every election. Where Democrat machines control a place, they cheat. And why wouldn't they? They steal. Why wouldn't they cheat? You don't have to guess at it. She's telling you that. Goes on, paragraph 10. I observed a large number of people who came to the satellite location to vote in person, but they had already applied for an absentee ballot. Gee, that's kind of strange. These people were allowed to vote in person and were not required to return the mailed absentee ballot or sign an affidavit that the voter lost the mailed absentee ballot. Encouraging them to vote twice. This is like, I voted early and often for Joe Biden and Harris because I was instructed to do so by the crooked Democrat Party of Detroit. Whenever I process an absentee voter application or in-person registration, I was instructed to input the person's name, address, and date of birth into the qualified voter file, QVF system. That means if they weren't registered, which means they weren't entitled to vote, she'd clean it all up by getting the vote and then putting the person's name in after the fact. That's also fraud. I don't know how many I've counted out. Four different acts of fraud being done by her and 70 to 80 other poll workers. You see how they're lying to you? The QV system can be accessed and edited by any election processor with proper credentials. I worked at the satellite location until the poll was closed and then completed the entry of all absentee ballots by 8:30. I then reported to the TCF Center, which becomes a Center for Corruption. It should be called the Voter Corruption Center. On November 4, 2020 at 8:30 a.m., I was instructed not to validate any ballots and not to look for any deficiencies in the ballots. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to look for deficiencies in the ballots. They didn't allow a Republican to look, and they also told the city worker, don't look. Normally, about 10% of the ballots are deficient. And every single one of these ballots that didn't have that inspection became, by virtue of that, under the law of Michigan, an unlawful ballot. One that shouldn't be counted, can't be counted. It's an illegal vote because it hasn't been inspected according to the new law that was passed. Absentee ballots that were received in the mail would have the voter's signature on the envelope. While I was at the TCF Center, I was instructed not to look at any of the signatures on the absentee ballots. And I was instructed not to compare the signature on the absentee ballot. The signature is there for the purpose of verifying. A Republican didn't get a chance to see that. And the city worker was told not to do it. Who cares if the signature is one thing and the signature is another thing and this person is voting 30 times? Keeps coming in 30 times. We wouldn't know. That also is a crime. All absentee ballots that existed were required to be inputted into the system by 9 p.m. on November 3rd. That was required to be done in order to have a final list, et cetera, in order to have enough time to process the ballots. All satellites were instructed to collect the absentee ballots from the drop box once every hour on November 3rd, 2020. End time, 8 p.m., November 3, 2020. By the way, that's an order from Justice Samuel Alito of the United States Supreme Court. Doesn't matter who's Justice Alito. the crooked Democratic Party of Detroit's more important than Judge Alito or the Supreme Court, because on November 4, I was instructed to improperly predate the absentee ballots, to change the receive date, and to make it look that they had been received on or before November 3rd. I was told then to alter the information in the QVF to falsely show that the absentee ballots had been received in time to be valid. I estimate that this was done thousands of times. Then she signs on the penalty of perjury. You're telling me this wasn't pervasive fraud? That there's no evidence of pervasive fraud? I assume now that NBC, CBS, ABC, Twitter, Facebook, Times, Washington Post is aware of this. They'll put it on the front page. Ha! We might as well be in Venezuela or China or the old Soviet Union. And now I think it would be a good time to take a short break.
Are you paying too much for your health insurance? Are your deductibles too high? Or are you completely uninsured? If you answered yes to any of these questions, Healthcare Help Desk can help you now when people need help the most. Health insurance laws and rules have changed. If you have Obamacare, are uninsured, or your premiums are too high, call Healthcare Help Desk. It's free. New healthcare plans are available, and you may qualify for dental coverage and lower copays and deductibles. Make the free call now. Top quality coverage at the lowest prices anywhere. You may be paying too much and not even know it. In these troubled times, healthcare is more important than ever. Don't let another day go by without health insurance. Policies are being offered with very low copays and deductibles. So if you're uninsured, underinsured, or paying too much, call Healthcare Help Desk. Learn about your options before it's too late.
Call 800-964-1055. 800-964-1055.
Attention Medicare recipients and anyone turning 65. Medicare has approved new benefits not included with original Medicare and older Medicare Advantage plans. You may not be getting all of the benefits you're entitled to. These new Medicare Advantage plans may have many free new benefits, including in-home aids, telephone appointments with your doctors, home-delivered meals and prescriptions. These benefits may be available, and it's a free call to enroll. The easiest way to enroll is to call the Medicare Benefits Line, a free non-government service. The new plans may also offer free eyeglasses, free hearing aids, free wellness visits, and gym memberships. Call the Medicare Benefits Line now. It's easy. Find out if you're eligible for new benefits like meal and prescription delivery, in-home aids, and telemedicine. Some plans may have a $0 monthly premium or zero copays for big out-of-pocket savings.
Call 800-691-1655. 800-691-1655.
Medicare Benefits Line is not connected with or endorsed by any government agency or the federal Medicare program.
I owed the IRS $10,000.
The IRS garnished my wages.
They put a lien on my house.
I'm self-employed and didn't report all my income. They claim I owe a lot more than I do.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency in the world. They do not give up until you pay.
I couldn't sleep. We were being audited. I called Tax Solutions Now, and a great big weight was lifted off my shoulders.
I called Tax Solutions Now, and they got the IRS off my back.
Tax Solutions Now had my wage garnishment lifted in 48 hours.
Tax Solutions Now can get you help. Our agents know the rules, can stop the pain, and get you the best deal.
Tax Solutions Now saved my business.
I qualified for the Fresh Start program. I paid less than I owed.
We connect you with a team of former IRS agents and tax professionals who get the IRS off your back. Time is running out. Call Tax Solutions now.
Call 800-447-7570. 800-447-7570.
I couldn't believe we were evicted from our home that we didn't even sell. Those are the words of a homeowner, Deborah, when she learned she was the victim of home title fraud. It's a devastating crime that can cost you your home, and title fraud is not covered by insurance or common identity theft services. The only folks to trust that I know of to protect your home's title is Home Title Lock. Cyber thieves have discovered the titles to our homes are kept online. They forge your name on your deed stating you sold your home, and they refile as the new owner. In Deborah's case, she didn't even know she was a victim until the eviction notice arrived in her mail. Home Title Lock protects you and your home by putting a virtual barrier around your home's title. The instant they detect tampering, they mobilize to shut it down. Go online to HomeTitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim and don't know it. Then use code RUDY, that's me, and sign up for 30 free days of protection. That's code RUDY at HomeTitleLock.com. Welcome back, and let's get back to the evidence and the proof that's being denied you because of the Iron Curtain of censorship. Let's get right back into it. Now we get to the second part. Of the affidavits. These are two affidavits. One is from Andrew Cito, a poll challenger, and the other is from Melissa Carone, an employee of Dominion Voting Services. Dominion Voting Services was the company that was selected to count the ballots. Very, very strange selection since they're a foreign company. It's going to turn out to be a very strange selection when you learn all the facts about Dominion Voting Services and who financed it and where the money came from and where these votes went so they could be manipulated. But that's not part of this direct case right now. That'll be another case. Let me tell you what these two together say. First, Melissa Carone, not an employee of anybody, not a political person, worked for Dominion Voting Services. She says, I witnessed countless workers rescanning the batches without discarding them first, which resulted in ballots being counted 4 or 5 times. This is in the TCF Center in Detroit, where basically 8 out of every 10 votes was for Biden. Except it wasn't 8 out of every 10. It was 8 out of 10 falsely magnified by 4 or 5 times. Over 400 ballots were scanned, had gotten blocked, which means one batch was counted over 8 times. This happened countless times while I was at the center. I confronted my manager, Nick Okonomakis, saying how big of a problem this was. Nick told me he didn't want to hear that we have a big problem. He told me we are here to assist with IT work, not to run their election. I guess they're there also not to be citizens of the United States and report crimes. I overheard numerous workers talking during shift change in which over 20 machines had 2 Democrats judging the ballots, resulting in an unfair process. Then we have the most interesting thing of all, that Mr. Cito and Ms. Carone both would observe at the same time. So let's go to Ms. Carone's version first. Sometime around 4 a.m, there was 2 vans that pulled into the garage of the counting room. This is after most people had left and most Republicans had left, because they thought it was over. The counting was over. And Trump was still ahead by about 130,000 votes, which they were extremely nervous about, say these witnesses. The 2 vans pulled up into the garage of the counting room. These vans appeared to be bringing food, but no food ever emerged from the vans. Instead, something like over 100,000 ballots came out of nowhere. Not in the usual containers, in cardboard boxes, in bags, some of them falling out, and they're all thrown on the table. And it was announced that Michigan had discovered over 100,000 more ballots after they had counted all of the mail ballots. But 100,000 more were just discovered in the middle of the night. And when a worker, she observed, when a worker couldn't read it, or all they did is just throw it in. They didn't bother to observe it. They were just being thrown in. When there wasn't a name, the worker would sign the name of the person that the ballot belonged to, which is clearly illegal. There was a time I heard Samuel talking to Nick about losing tons of data. Ultimately, she called the FBI and made a report with them, and I was told I will be getting a call back. Needless to say, she didn't get a call back because this was overwhelming evidence of voter fraud by Democrats, not Republicans. Had it been Republicans, 10 FBI agents would have shown up immediately and seized the ballots. You know that. You know there's something seriously wrong with the upper echelon of our FBI. Now, just in case you don't believe her, even though she signed under penalties of perjury, why would a woman do that if it wasn't true? But there it is. And by the way, whether you believe it or not, it's evidence. They're lying to you when they say there's no evidence. This is evidence of systemic, pervasive voter fraud in the city of Detroit at such a level that it changed the numbers and made Biden the winner and not Trump. Because we can count out at least 320,000 votes that were unlawful and illegal, including the 100,000 that came in at 4:30 in the morning. And there are more witnesses to that, by the way. I just gave you the 2 under oath. There are more witnesses to what I told you, that it definitely happened. This is very powerful evidence. So let's take a short break and we'll be back with even more.
Here's a great way to save money on your prescription medications. If you take Viagra or Cialis, we can give you a way to pay as little as $2 a pill. Compare that to prices as high as $60 per tablet. Call now with your prescription and pay as little as $2 a pill. We offer 24/7 service and always free delivery and confidential packaging. Call Pharmacy Shop 24/7 to get generic versions of Viagra or Cialis for as little as $2 a pill, plus free discreet shipping.
Broken AC, $4,600. Water heater, $1,500. Fridge on the fritz, $1,000. You need home warranty coverage from the Home Service Club for around $1 a day. If any of your covered appliances and systems break down, HSC will either repair or replace them.
HSC provides coverage of up to 47 different appliances and systems in your home.
I trust HSC.
HSC has over 15,000 pre-screened, highly rated technicians with the fastest response time in the industry. They cover everything from ACs, stoves, fridges, pool pumps, and more. Call the number on your screen now for a free no-obligation quote from a trusted HSC specialist about a home warranty for your entire home, backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Call now and get 1 month free plus $75 off your first year of coverage. 1 month free and $75 off your first year. The Home Service Club.
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay for dental visits. Did you?
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay for transportation to my doctor. Did you?
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay to have my prescriptions delivered directly to my home. Did you?
These and more are important benefits some Medicare Advantage plans may give you. So if you're eligible for Medicare, call us right now because you may be eligible to enroll in a plan with amazing additional benefits. Some Medicare Advantage plans may pay for services like these: dental visits, vision coverage, hearing coverage, home delivery of drugs, even gym memberships. Some plans may include no copays for many services and 0 deductibles. Don't wait to find out if you're eligible to enroll in a plan that may include some of these wonderful benefits you deserve. Call us right now. The call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation. Make this free call now to learn if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan that may include additional benefits you want. Call us right now.
Here's a great way to save money on your prescription medications. If you take Viagra or Cialis, we can give you a way to pay as little as $2 a pill. Compare that to prices as high as $60 per tablet. Call now with your prescription and pay as little as $2 a pill. We offer 24/7 service and always free delivery and confidential packaging. Call Pharmacy Shop 24/7 to get generic versions of Viagra or Cialis for as little as $2 a pill, plus free discreet shipping.
How bad is it? Your back, knee, or neck pain? My knee pain was awful. I probably tried the same things you're trying to manage your pain. Topical ointments, pain relievers, fish oil, but nothing worked. Then I tried Omega XL, and here's why. The underlying cause of painful, achy joints and muscles is inflammation. The key is to knock down inflammation before it causes permanent damage. Backed by 35 years of research, that's exactly what Omega XL does. Nothing comes close to doing what Omega XL does. There's nothing like it. If you're suffering with painful, achy joints and muscles, stop wasting money and switch to Omega XL. Order Omega XL now and get a second bottle free. Visit omegaxl.com/Rudy. That's omegaxl.com/Rudy or call 1-800-844-4888. 800-844-4888. Thank you for returning, and let's get back to the evidence that the phony media says doesn't exist. Then we have the support for that from a gentleman by the name of Andrew Cito. Andrew was a poll challenger. He arrived at the TCF Center at 9:30 p.m. on November 3rd. He reported to the counting room And he had no ability to be able to see any of the ballots being counted, nor would they allow him to see any of the ballots being counted, even though he was a certified poll watcher of the Republican Party. At approximately 4:30 p.m., now, similar to what she said, I thought everyone was going to go home as our shift had ended. There were two men in charge of the counting, one in his 30s and one in his 50s. At approximately 4:30, the man in his 50s got on the microphone and stated that another shipment of absentee ballots would be arriving and would have to be counted. Now, the count was all over. The guy announces, we got a few more ballots coming in. They had finished all the ballots they thought they had. It wasn't a few more ballots. There's 100,000 ballots. A few more ballots that come in at 4:30 in the morning. This is like Al Capone and this is like Al Capone and Prohibition. At approximately 4:30 a.m., sworn under oath by Mr. Cito, at approximately tens of thousands of ballots were brought in and placed on 8 long tables. Unlike the other ballots, these boxes were brought in from the rear of the room. Quite appropriate that they be brought in the back door, right? The same procedure was performed on the ballots that arrived at approximately 4:30 a.m., but I specifically noticed that every ballot I observed was cast for Joe Biden. Oh, wow. Wasn't that amazing? They thought they had finished counting. 100,000 ballots come in out of nowhere, sort of like it's Santa Claus and Christmas, except Santa Claus would never participate in a voter fraud. And they're all for Biden. And they have to make up 130,000 votes. And this is 100,000 votes. While counting these new ballots, I heard counters say at least 5 or 6 times that all 5 or 6 ballots as they were counting through were for Biden. All ballots that I sampled, heard or observed were for Joe Biden. There was a shift change at 5 a.m. Whatever challenges were left, I decided not to leave and continue to monitor the ballot counting. Upon information and belief, the TCF Center was the only place where absentee ballots were being counted. I filled out 6 or 7 incident reports about what was happening at the TCF Center. He was complaining vociferously about this, to no avail. At approximately 2 p.m., so now he stayed all the way until 2 p.m., on November 4, 2020, election officials covered the windows to the counting room with cardboard to block the view against the law in Michigan. A little after 2 p.m., I exited the glass-enclosed room to take a break in the lobby area. When I tried to go back into the counting room, security guards refused to allow me back into the monitoring room to carry out my duties as a observer, credentialed observer. Previously, people could come and go freely into the counting room. Sworn to by Mr. Cito. 100,000 ballots at 4:30 in the morning? That's massive voter fraud. When you combine it with the votes that were counted without Republican observers, as the law required, we're talking about approximately 230 to 300,000 ballots that were unlawful, way beyond Biden's phony margin of victory. It sounds like, in fact, this is going to end up with Trump being pretty close to the 300, well, probably half the 300,000 that he had on the night of the election, which actually is what most mathematicians would tell you was the most they could have really reduced it if they did it legally. And the reason they had to rush in those 100,000 ballots, we can now show, is because they panicked. The Democrats didn't expect that he'd run that well. And then I want you to consider one other thing in conclusion. How is it that in 10 different Democrat-controlled cities with crooked Democrat machines, with a long list of people that have gone to jail over the years, how is it that every single leader there woke up on the morning of November 3rd and said, we have this new mail process, and we're going to shut out the Republicans from observing. Even though whenever we do absentee ballots, we have to allow the Republicans to observe. And even though the law says we have to allow the Republicans to observe, we're going to take the risk of violating the law because we control these cities so much. But it was like the individual idea of the leader in Philadelphia and the one in Pittsburgh and the one in Detroit and the one in Milwaukee and the one in Minnesota and the one all the way out in Phoenix, Arizona and Las Vegas, Nevada and Atlanta, Georgia. They just came up with this on their own. We're going to shut out the Republicans? Or do you think this was a concerted plan executed by the Democratic National Committee and the crooked Biden campaign? Look, let's get real. Joe Biden plagiarized and cheated his way through law school. Joe Biden plagiarized and tried to cheat his way through his first presidential election. The Biden family and Joe have made millions, 30 to 40 million alone from China. And we have a text in which Hunter Biden says half of that goes to Joe. The man, sold himself so many times. Why wouldn't he cheat? The evidence is overwhelming, ladies and gentlemen. He stole an election. Now we have 2 states. Those votes have to go to Trump. We're going to move on now to Nevada. You don't think it's worse in Nevada? I already know it's worse in Nevada. Phoenix, Atlanta. We're not going to stop. We've been threatened. We've been told we can never get jobs. We've been told we can't be allowed in polite society. We've been told all kinds of things. I'm very proud of what we're doing. We're saving the integrity of the American electoral process, which has been trashed by a crooked leadership of the Democrat Party. And I want to say to Democrats, even those who voted for Biden, this isn't your fault. This isn't your fault. This is the leadership of your party. It got corrupted by Clinton, and it never got uncorrupted. And now they've become major world-class crooks. Stealing an election is nothing for these people. Nothing. They certainly stole the election in Detroit. They certainly stole the election in Pennsylvania. There were over 100 witnesses to that. And you're going to see the same thing is true in 5 other places. And then we're going to take a look at Dominion, and we'll show you how technologically they stole the election. So keep paying attention to this podcast and the others, as well as OAN and Newsmax and the local radio stations that have the courage to present the information to you. A lot of it, is getting through. We're going around that Iron Curtain. It's kind of like the Berlin Wall, and never thought I'd see this in America. But we're going to defeat it. This is a great country. We've got great people. My goodness, you have unbelievable common sense. So stick with us. We'll be back very shortly with a lot more evidence, very much like this. Thank you.